What's good, everybody? And we are not back, but we are here because this is the Wright Quallity Podcast. This is a new podcast that we're bringing to you for you guys that do not know. My name is Stephen Qualls II. I'm your resident sport junkie, Milwaukee Bucks fan, Green Bay Packer fan, and Milwaukee native, if you haven't realized that. And I'll let my beautiful co-host introduce herself.
Thank you. I'm Ashley Wright. I'm a fan of the New York Giants, ouch, Boston Red Sox, and I don't really have a favorite basketball team, but I love Melo. Also a sports junkie.
Yes, this is a Mellow Stan podcast account.
Yes.
we are Mellow Stans here. But yeah, no, this is a new podcast, man. We've been at this, trying to get this right for a while now. We definitely feel like we have the right. So, for now, it's just now we're just bringing you that content, that quality content, And so, yeah, we'll just get right into it. With the first topic that I wanted to bring to the table. So I was watching a Max Kellerman tape the other day, which was weird because I'm not a huge
Max is Max.
Max is Max. But anyway, so his take was that if Allen Iverson was 6'6", he would have been the greatest basketball player to ever live. And so before I give my take, I want to hear your take on, do you agree? Do you feel like, what do you feel like if he did have those extra inches, if that makes the claim true, and where you feel personally, AI would have stood if that was the case?
Man, it's so rare that I agree with Max, but I agree with Max. Like the best, I don't know, but definitely in the conversation, because a 6 foot even AI is already in that conversation as far as like his position goes and things of that nature. But I just kind of want to talk about the 2000-2001 76ers team that went to the finals. AI, that finals was 5 games, right? AI led 4 of those games in points scored. He scored the most points in 4 of those games, and he was the shortest player on the 76ers team. And the next tallest player was 6'3". Another player that's 6'3" in the NBA today is Russell Westbrook, and we know what he can do. So you take AI's ball handling skills. We've seen him cross over Jordan, the infamous crossover with Ty Lue. And then obviously he can score. Like he's leading not only his team, but also the Lakers in scoring. And you got Shaquille O'Neal in the paint. He's 6 feet. Shaq is what? 7'2", 7? I don't know. He's a 7-footer.
Listed as 7'1".
Yeah, he's a 7-footer, and here AI is still leading his team in scoring in the finals for four of those 5 games. So you take AI and add 6 more inches to him, monster. That's a monster.
Yeah, I think the thing, like you said, AI is already a killer. So giving him more height just makes him virtually unstoppable. But I think, I agree with you. I don't know about best because I guess it depends on how technical you want to make the conversation. Because if you make Iverson 6'6" with all the skills that he had, I think all his skills are virtually enhanced, if he has that height. So one could argue that if AI is the same height as Jordan, I mean, from a dribbling standpoint, AI was better. It would be tough to say AI was the better scorer. I don't think that's a question that's ever been.
I wouldn't go that far. Yeah.
I wouldn't go that far, but it's a very interesting thing to think about if AI is the better scorer. I don't think so. I just think MJ had more of a package and had more ways to score than AI did. But then it was also easier for Mike to score too than AI. That's another conversation for another day. But yeah, I agree with Max in the sense that if he has that height, I think he's undoubtedly in the conversation of top 3, like undoubtedly. But I also don't know if him being 6'6" changes his career in the sense of, does he win more? Does he get?
I think it does.
You do? You think so? You think?
I think it does.
Changes him in the ring or not?
Yes. Think about when they had Andre Iguodala, right?
Yeah.
6'6" AI with that Iguodala. That Iguodala was, man.
Hey, Philly Iguodala?
That was a different Iguodala. That's jumping out the gym.
Different Iggy.
Yeah, stalking folks on defense. Like, it's different. It's different.
So
then you got that 6'6" AI with Dikembe Mutombo. He wasn't a punk down there. It's a different team.
Yeah, you're right. It would have been interesting to see, because did Philly have that Iguodala in the finals?
They didn't have Iguodala in the finals in 2001.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have loved to see that team maybe
Mm-hmm.
go against LA for sure. But yeah, so a rare agreement with Max, but here we are, Max. You're welcome. But that actually takes us to the next topic, because another thing. So I was watching a documentary the other day. That's how I come up with topics for the show. I watch stuff and I think of interesting questions. But I was watching, I think Shut Up and Dribble. Yeah, it was Shut Up and Dribble. And so I'm watching, and I'm like, and the fun thing was I hadn't watched it in its entirety before. So for a lot of it, it was my first time seeing it. And I'm looking at some of these players, and so AI came up. And so I had seen AI's like documentary before and all that. So none of this was new, but it was the first time I kind of had the thought like, wow, like AI is extremely influential.
Yeah.
Like past hooping, like he's extremely influential to the game of basketball and to the culture of basketball. And that kind of led me to think like, who would you say are the top 5 most influential players of all time? And actually I changed that. I want to say athletes. I don't want to limit it to just basketball.
Okay.
But who are your top 5 most influential athletes of all time?
Man, when we talk about athletes, that's harder. It makes it a lot harder.
It's hard, but I think it's the spectrum though as well.
Yeah. I think number 1 is obviously Michael Jordan. And you think about his Jordan brand. People who don't even like basketball wear Jordans, you know what I mean? So definitely Michael Jordan. Man, number 2, I feel like it's a toss-up. I would take Bron and Kobe, because if you think about it, Black Mamba was everywhere, especially China, right? Like,
right.
And that was before the NBA really became this global thing. I think now the NBA is way more global than it was when Kobe was in the 2009 finals. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So for Kobe to still have that reach during that time, that says how influential you are. And Bron came into the game and really changed how we thought about like prospects. Like Bron was Zion before Zion. We all know that. But Bron was Zion before social media and before all of like these camera phones and all of that. So it's like, that's very influential. Number 3, I think that's a tie to number 3. I don't know. Number 3, I want to say Deion Sanders. I think
Primetime might have to be in that list though.
Yeah, Primetime went crazy. Primetime is definitely influential. 2-sport athlete, and then like I don't want to call them gimmicks, but his personality was definitely backed up by what he was able to do on the field. And he was able to do it in multiple cities. Talk about Atlanta, San Francisco, Dallas. He did it. You know what I mean? And he was always himself. Number 4, Ken Griffey Jr. I think he's pretty influential, especially definitely in the game of baseball. Like I said with Jordan, like you got people who probably don't even know who Ken is, but they're wearing his shoes. Like his shoes were pretty popular. And number 5, number 5 is tough. I think Brady is influential. Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Tom Brady. No, Steph Curry. Steph is influential. Okay. I'm going to put Steph at 5. And I'm going to put Steph at 5 because basketball is more of a global sport right now. He's definitely taken advantage of, I guess, like social media era right now. And then you got people wanting to see pregame warm-ups more than they want to see the game because of what Steph does in his pregame, like the dribbles and the trick shots from the tunnel, all of that. I think Steph is pretty influential too.
That's real. Now that's a very interesting 5, and I think it's crazy because I don't think there's a consensus 5. I think depending on who you add, it'll always differ. Because my 5, I think the only person that I'd share in my 5 is MJ, because I think MJ would be anybody's probably number 1, simply because, like you said, from a branding standpoint, and if you think about what MJ did for the game of basketball, you could argue that MJ is the reason basketball had the ability to go global the way it did. And he really changed the perception of the league in a lot of ways as well, I think, too. So MJ is up there. I think somebody that people forget about, but when you hear it, it's like, you know, undeniable, like agreements. Ali. I think we don't talk about Ali a lot. Maybe just because, you know, I know a lot of our generation didn't live it, and a lot of people may not have, you know, done the research and understand just exactly what, you know, what Ali's story is and what he did. But I don't think we've ever seen anybody in the prime of their career, you know, or have to sacrifice the prime of their career while at the top at that, for a social justice issue at that. But I think Ali is influential in so many ways. Like not only that, but of course just his style and his brand of just. I think he's the epitome of like you gotta talk and back it up. Because, like, you know, if he does all that and he loses, like we looking at him like a laughing stock. Like, you know, but he backed up everything he said and he just made it sound great. You know, so you know, Ali's in there. AI's in mine. And I think AI is third, to me personally, because like I said, from a culture standpoint, AI literally brought the culture, whether it be dressing, whether it be the way people dress, the way we dress, the association to rap music and hip hop culture. Like AI started that. Like in the 90s, you were in do-rags to your game, bro.
Yeah.
You wearing your hair out, bro. You got fresh cornrows for the All-Star game.
Yeah.
Like the league ain't know what to do. They like, what is this? You know what I'm saying? But I think that, and it set a precedent for, like, imagine if fashion was heralded the same way then as it is now. Like AI would be the leader. Like AI would be on league fits all the time. Like,
yeah, he would.
So you know, I think in that regard, and he was not step before step from a playing standpoint. But when you had small guys looking at somebody in the league, AI made you feel like if you was 6 foot or shorter, you know, you could play in the land of the Giants. Like it was just about, you know, how hard you work. So AI's there. Bron is next. Bron's 4, because I think Bron, and I feel bad. Like I don't. Kobe's not on my list, but it's not because Kobe's not influential. I just think throughout his career, Bron has expanded his brand past basketball, and Kobe didn't do that until he retired. It was great. You know, I really wish we would have got a chance to see it as well, more so, or come to fruition more so. But from the school that Bron started, from all the other business ventures, like when you think of Uninterrupted, think of all these things that you don't even realize is him because his name is not on it directly. I just think from a influential standpoint, if he's not, because everybody's not going to be 6'8", you know, 250, be able to do what he can physically, but he's giving back to so many different areas that I feel like has been unmatched, honestly, at least throughout his time in the league, to me. So that's why he's 4. And then lastly, going to football, got to have one football athlete in there. It's not prime time, but I'm going with Michael Vick.
Oh, I thought you were about to say Terrell Owens.
You know, T.O. could easily be in that conversation as well. But I go with Vick because when you talk about the black quarterback, I mean, there's a lot of black quarterbacks, honestly, that you could really put in there. But Vick, I mean, clearly, you know, Vick changed what that could look like. I would easily say he started that. He did. I mean, when you think of your Patrick Mahomes, your Lamar Jacksons, your Deshaun Watsons, and I say black quarterbacks because I just don't think, you know, a lot of white quarterbacks are brought up, you know, to be inspired by somebody like Vic. But, you know, Lamar Jackson is Vic 2.0. Like, you know, and that's not a bad thing, and it's not something that has to be negative, but, you know, Vic paved the lane for that. Vic let it be known that, like, you can do this, you know, as a quarterback. You don't have to be told to be a running back or be any other position. Like, you can do this at the quarterback position and still have an arm and still know how to be your prototypical prototypical or stereotypical quarterback. So
Yep.
those would be my top 5. But like we both said, there are so many names that could be tossed into the conversation because when you talk, I think when you talk about influence, like influence is different than being the best. I mean, sometimes they coincide, but like usually the best are influential, but you also sometimes have those players like I don't think Ken Griffey Jr. To some, he might be, but I don't know if he would consensus, be considered the best baseball player of all time.
Right.
Nobody can argue how influential he was either. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's a very interesting conversation that can always be revisited because opinions will always change.
Mm-hmm.
But next, our next topic, we saw this kind of resurge this year, more than anything. But duos in the NBA, talk. I prefer dynamic duos over super teams, if you ask me personally. But speak on duos and throughout giving your opinion on it. Let me know what your top 5 duos of all time list looks like.
So I focused on basketball this. So for number 5,
sorry, that's duos really only kind of work in basketball mostly.
Yeah. I didn't want our viewers to be confused by what we were doing, but so for number 5, I have Tony Parker and Tim Duncan. I think that's hands down one of the most, I would say, underrated duos of all time. Like, come on now, Tim was Mr. Fundamental, and like fundamentals in basketball take you far. Obviously, we see that again with Kawhi Leonard.
Right.
He's able to take that system wherever he goes. Toronto, obviously, the Clippers, we haven't seen what they've been able to do with it yet, but eventually I feel like Kawhi will hoist a trophy in LA. But yeah, Tim Duncan and Tony Parker are number 5 on my list. Number 4, I have Kobe and Shaq. Obviously, what they've been able to,
It's a little low for them. I'm interested to see the rest of this.
Yeah, I gotta say the rest of my list. I don't know, it might be low, but Kobe and 3P, they ran the early 2000s. We all know what they've been able to do. 3rd, I got Larry Bird and Kevin McHale.
Okay.
I really like them. Okay, McHale, I feel like he's one of the most underrated players too. I feel like people forget what he was able to do. I think in '87 he had 26 points per game, right? And he's down low. And during that era, you got a lot of people that you banging down low against. Like,
right, you banging the entire game.
Right. And then with Larry Bird, you're averaging 26 points per game, and you got Larry Bird on your team too, who also needs the ball. So you were also able to produce with somebody who was considered a better player than you. You weren't even the top player on your team, and you were able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then number 2, I've got Kareem and Magic. That also speaks for itself.
Okay.
And then number 1, obviously, Jordan and Pippen were able to three-peat twice.
Yeah.
Twice. And then what's so funny? Because
I'm looking at the list and like I thought they were low, and I would only move Kobe and Shaq up 1. But
you would put them above Bird and McHale?
Only because I feel like they were more dominant as a duo.
Okay.
That's why I would move them up.
What do you mean by dominant, though?
I don't think there's a more scary or outside of Mike and Scotty. And I would argue even to a degree, Magic and Kareem. Like, they were scary, but if you're facing Kobe and Shaq, especially during their three-peat, I don't know, because it's to a point like Shaq is the most dominant player in the league and Kobe is gunning for anybody in his way. So you don't get a break. You just don't get a break in the game at all. Like,
so if you ran up on Larry Bird and McHale in Boston, you ain't worried about it?
I don't know. I'm scared because Larry definitely probably gonna give me a 30 ball. But and McHale's definitely not no joke. Like, if you watch film and if you know basketball, you know how important Kevin McHale was. So
that under was stupid.
Right, and I think a big thing about that era too, that a lot of people, unless you've watched your docs or watched your film, like, in the 80s, especially that Celtics team, like Larry and Mikal, they were playing for 5+ years with serious injuries, like that need to be attended to. Like they should have been sitting out for a year, maybe 2. Like I think it was Mikal's foot, Larry's back. Like, shambles. Like there was no reason they should have been playing on them body parts. No, there's no way in hell. So it's like I think that. So considering that and what they did as well, like that's why I'm not mad with the placement at all. But I was just laughing because when I first heard it, I'm like 4.
I see.
but no, that's real. Yeah, no, that's.
No, you're right about Shaq though. I remember I was watching a documentary and Shaq was like, he was lined up across from the Sacramento Kings and they were in Sacramento, and he was like, during the national anthem, he was looking at their lineup and he made eye contact with somebody. He was like, yeah, it's that type of night.
I think that was in him and Kobe, that him and Kobe conversation.
Yeah, their sit down.
That one, which was amazing.
Yes, it was.
But yeah, so I think I would agree. Well, I definitely would agree that Mike and Scottie are is the best duo of all time. Mainly because I think somehow to this day, even after The Last Dance, people still don't realize just how cool Scottie was. Like Scottie was not Robin. Let me tell you that right now. Like Scottie was not Robin to Mike's Batman.
It's Superman and Batman, I feel like.
Literally, because Scottie in his own right, like if you built a team around Scottie, like
would have been Kawhi before Kawhi.
He is. I truly think that's who I would compare Kawhi to. Like, because their games are even extremely similar. Now that you mentioned that comparison, Jesus Christ, he definitely Scottie 2.0. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so that I think Kareem and Magic do have to be 2, because you can't argue rings and you can't argue possibly the greatest move of all time, and you can't argue a 6'9" point guard that can do everything. I don't think you can. I really feel bad because I thought we was going to disagree, but I don't think we do. And it's only because I can't think of – there are no duos now that I feel like are better than the duos that have been named. Because, of course, you think of Steph and Clay. You have the new duo, so you think of – but they're all new. So that's the thing, too. Like, you think of LeBron and AD, but we haven't seen them do anything. You think
if I had to take a duo now – and not even necessarily now, I'm just saying like of this NBA era, I would probably say Bron and Dwayne. Like that was a time. Yeah. That was a time.
They're probably 6, honestly. They're probably 6 because, it may take some research, but I'm trying to think like Elijah Wan didn't really have a second guy like that, like on his tier.
Some people might say Kenny Smith, but I feel like he didn't carry the weight Dwayne carried.
Not his tier. I mean? Like Kenny was cold, but not Elijah Wan tier. Drexler didn't have somebody like his peer, on his team. Same with Barkley. AI didn't.
You know what? What about? Well, nah.
I think because to me, like a duo, if you're a duo and we're putting you in this conversation, I'm thinking of it like both of y'all would have had to been stars. Like all of these duos, each of these players, with maybe the exception of TP and Duncan, but I would argue that we argued as well. All these players are top 10 players in the league in their prime. Yep. And I only argue TP and Duncan because it depends on what era you want to put them in. Mm-hmm. I feel like Duncan's always going to kind of be in the conversation. TP maybe not so much. So they kind of 50-50. But I still will put them there. I don't think there's a duo. I may argue. The only reason I wouldn't put Bron and Wade over TP and Duncan is because no,
I wouldn't do that.
Because I was thinking Duncan got 4, and TP got 3, and both Bron and Wade got 3. But then it's hard because like the 3 that Tony has, he won with Duncan. So as a duo, they have 3. It's really technical. Like, but
What about Dwayne and Shaq? I know they only got 1, but
they would only because I think Shaq was Shaq out of his prime at that point though? Because that championship is let's be real. That championship is
it was. I wouldn't say Shaq was out of his prime because he still had that presence.
Yeah, he did.
He wasn't nearly the Shaquille O'Neal he was in 2000.
Right.
But he was still Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah.
I would still put Tim Duncan and Tony Parker there.
They probably top 10. Because really, once you get after that 5 and a couple other honorable mentions, when you talk about duos, there's not too many. Like I said, like Steph and Clay they will be in the top 10, especially by the time their careers is over. Yeah. Like that 04 Pistons team was such a team like that they didn't really have a duo.
But the duo, I was gonna say if you had to pick up 2 guys, obviously Chauncey, but who would be the next guy?
Tough part because
Tayshaun was a dominant part. Ben Wallace,
people don't talk about Tayshaun like that really upsets me. People don't talk about Tayshaun enough at all. He doesn't get the respect he deserves. But like between like watching some of all the Smoke interviews and watching like Ron Artest like documentary, like that team and them battles during that time, like that was a squad. And Indiana had a squad back then too that a lot of people kind of forget because I don't think they really got to the promised land. But no, it was some teams back then and there was some battles for sure. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so duos, those are the top 5 duos in our opinion. So that's Mike and Scotty, Kareem and Magic, Larry, McHale, Kobe and Shaq, Tony Parker and Tim Duncan. There's a lot of new duos that, we'll have to see, and only time will tell if they'll kind of get into this conversation or what they'll be able to do, but exciting nonetheless. The future, we've been saying this for some time, but the future of the NBA is really, really bright. So, when you look at, the Brons, who in the next 5 years, your Brons, your KDs, your actually, they might be the only 2 that really might be on their way out, like really, really soon.
Yeah, it's not a lot of older players in the NBA for real.
Which is crazy because usually you kind of see a transition, but they kind of merging right now.
It's a gap. It's definitely like as far as age and stuff. But like you said, the eras are merging. But like as far as age, there's a huge gap.
But I also think in today's game, you got players playing longer. So you don't, you got 10, 12-year career stretching to 15, 16.
Yeah.
I mean, PC just did 20. And he probably the last one of them to do that from that era, at least, you know what I'm saying? So when you got people that came in the league, the end of last decade, end of, 2000s, beginning of last decade, there's better ways to take care of your body now. Like the game is not as physical. So, you play longer. So when you got Bron in year 17, you got somebody like Harden, Russ, KD, they all been in the league 12, 13 years, but they don't seem to be slowing down. Mm-hmm. So they probably at least, I wouldn't be surprised if they played another 5 years, barring serious injury. So I think like you said, I think we're seeing the eras merge, but it should be interesting to see, like, because I think it creates this power struggle of like, okay, as the young guys get into year 6, year 7, and they hit their prime, it's like, yeah, you the OG, but trying to get this ring. You feel me? So
yeah.
I feel like it's going to create a lot of really good matchups in the next few years as we do start to see that transition happen. But, that's all the topics we have for our inaugural podcast. But something that we will be doing every episode is bringing a moment of clarity here. We want to address all these things in sports that don't make sense. And we just really want to make sense of. We want to be clear. We want some clarity. So what we'll both do at the end of each episode is mention some type of instance or situation in sports where we just like, why they do that? Or why didn't they do this? Why did this happen? There's no reason this should have taken place at all. So do you want to kick us off? Do you?
Sure. So for my moment of clarity, we were talking about it before we started this episode. It was a video with Cam Newton, Victor Cruz, Todd Gurley, and Odell Beckham Jr.
Hello?
And Cam was sort of getting into, what led to his departure in Carolina.
Right.
And he talked he talked about how, he's looking at the Drew Brees situation, and the Saints are very transparent with Drew. Even though Bridgewater won 5 games in a row, Drew Brees is still our guy. So what I'm wondering is, why did Carolina sort of take their time in letting Cam know we don't want to move forward with you? Because Cam was like, he went from the guy that trainers are going, hey, you got to get up, I got to wrap Cam foot, to, hold on, Cam, let me get finished with Christian McCaffrey. Let me get finished with this third string linebacker over here before I get to you. You know what I mean? So it's like, why do Cam like that? And, this man took your franchise to the Super Bowl. Although he didn't win, he was still an MVP quarterback. He did all of this for Carolina, and that's how y'all treat him. So my moment of clarity is, why would Carolina do something like that?
Yeah, I don't know. The more I've learned, because I didn't necessarily follow Cam religiously, as he of course you knew about him coming out of college, and you watched him when you watch his game of sin, in the pros. But like you said, I don't know how you watch Cam do what he did, especially in taking that team to the Super Bowl and then not just be straight up. Because I mean, things like this happen in all leagues. Sometimes it's just a business. Sometimes teams just kind of fade, and sometimes it's just your time to go, or your time to go. Start a new chapter. Try something different, whatever the case may be. But the transparency thing is, I think a lot of GMs, a lot of coaches, I think, when they don't have a reason, they don't have a real reason, when they're just trying to get you out, when they don't really want to address maybe why it may be coming, they just result to that. And I feel like that happens in a lot of pro sports, where they act like children. We are, you hear a lot of athletes say it, we grown men, we gonna learn that this is a business. We gonna get that part, but be real, just be upfront. There's no reason ain't no reason to lie or, hide what it really is. I'm grown, I can take it.
You're not gonna hurt my feelings.
Right. But if you start doing things like that, and that affects me being able to get a job, in the sense of, because if you acting like this and I'm not hip, what are you saying to other teams then at that point?
Yeah.
So I don't know, but that's a great watch, by the way. If y'all haven't watched that, definitely check that out. But I'm not sure. I don't know. I really don't. I don't got an answer for you. It's very odd. Because the talent has always been there, and I hate that, especially when Black players. I feel like this happens a lot with Black players more than white players. But when they get injured, and it either lingers, or they're trying to make sure they're really taken care of, teams all of a sudden make it seem like they're done for, they're washed goods. Yeah, that's messed up. That's really messed up. But yeah, okay. My moment of clarity. So I've been trying to catch up on all the Smoke episodes. And so I was watching Rip Hamilton's interview. And so they brought up a really interesting point that I've always been, not worried about, but interested in. So you think of that 2003 draft, right? So who was one? Brown. Darko Milicic. Darko Milicic.
Yeah.
But he got drafted by Detroit. So my question, and listen to the interview, I get it, but I always thought it was an interesting question. Why didn't Detroit draft Melo?
My guy would have a ring, bro. My guy would have 2 rings.
Multiple. Because they already had one in 2004, right?
And he's not losing to the Spurs. They would not lose that finals to the Spurs.
So my thing is, what Rip was saying was that basically, because of course it's not the player's decision, but I guess the front office made it seem as if there wouldn't have been room for Melo, because they knew Melo would have came in, and of course Melo not finna just be a 6-man, or Melo not finna not get his touches. But my thing is, I don't see how you don't think you can bring a player like Melo into that team and they figure it out.
And I don't buy that, because as a rookie, I'm not coming in demanding the ball. I'm a rookie. I'm trying to get my feet in the door. You know what I mean? We're talking about prime Melo. We're not talking about leading scorer Melo. We're talking about Melo out of Syracuse. But if you tell this rookie you're 6-man, you're 6-man.
You're six
You
man.
know what I mean? So
And then look at who your sixth man too. Like, look at what team you're on. Look at who you're coming behind. Like, and my thing is this, and Rip said it, he was like, Tayshaun wouldn't have cared if he got less minutes. Like, Sheed and Ben wouldn't have cared if they got less minutes. Rip was like, please bring Melo so I can chill.
Yeah.
For 10 minutes. Let the young buck come in and get his buckets. We need that. I need a break. Okay? Like, but if Melo goes to that team, because you got to imagine at least what Melo rookie contract would have at least been what?
Good 4 years.
Good 4 years. They would have been able to pay him. And at least in the 4 years, Melo could have, if it came down to a money thing, you can't tell me that unless they would have started fishing out players already, you can't tell me that them vets wouldn't have took pay cuts to make sure Melo got paid and keep that team around.
Right. And then still, even as a rookie, you are not obligated to give this man hundreds of millions of dollars.
You're not. Think long term. You sign this man to a rookie deal. You keep the core. Y'all already got the team intact. You just add another weapon. They went in 04 and 05. So if hypothetically, y'all go to the finals, y'all win. Say y'all win both. Okay, y'all just two-peated. You know what I'm saying? That's another thing. Y'all just went back to back, two-peated. So y'all just went back to back. They kept that team together through 07, 08 at least. Yep. So when you had to make these decisions, I can't see them being like, we got this team that clearly is still a contender. We just gonna break it up. Like, and the thing is, the rest of that team, Tayshaun played a little deep into last decade, like maybe like mid last decade. I think Rip a little bit like mid.
Yeah, he was on that Bulls team with Derrick Rose.
Right. Chauncey played a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But Ben didn't play too much longer. She didn't play too much longer. So like there was room. And then by that point, now you can look at, okay, maybe Melo's the main point now, but you still got a veteran point guard in Chauncey. You still got somebody like Rip. Okay, maybe you gotta let Tayshaun go. But now you bring in another big, like you still got a core there. And so it's just like it won't make sense to me.
Me either. I never understand why. And Melo was the reigning national champion.
Darko Milicic.
The reigning national champion.
Darko Milicic.
Maybe I need to go YouTube him again. Because from what I saw, I'm mind my business.
I'm mind the business that pays me.
Yeah.
I'm not a GM. I don't know. I'm not an NBA personnel whatsoever. Maybe we just wrong. Maybe we don't know what we talking about. But it just, from the tape that I saw, it just doesn't add up.
Yeah, from what I had seen.
From what I had encountered in my eyes, I don't. But okay, well, that's it, y'all, for the first episode. But if y'all love that, if y'all rock with the content, if y'all rock with the moment of clarity, we got much more for y'all. So stay tuned. And unless, Ashley, you have any final words for our audience?
No, just make sure you interact with us wherever you see us, whether that's YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, Instagram, Twitter. Let us know what's up. If there's any topics you want us to talk about, we got it.
We always do. And until next time, peace, y'all.